Hi, I'm Myles, and I'm on staff here at Shady Grove. And today, as we continue in our series on the letters to the church, we'll look into the Apostle Paul's letters to the Christians in Colossae, the letter to the Colossians. Much like those in Galatia, the Colossian Christians started out on the right track. But it didn't take long for them to lose focus. It didn't take long before their attention was on everything except the most important thing. People who taught that you had to become Jewish before you could become a Christian, well, their teachings began to take over. Now, this issue had already been settled about a decade before this letter was authored, and the church leaders declared that the old covenant that was established with Moses had indeed been fulfilled, and now the brand new covenant that Jesus established was in place. But 2,000 years ago, word didn't travel all that fast. Nobody in Colossae apparently got the memo. And Paul, seeing this travesty, knew he was going to have to put a stop to it. All these things that were being taught were distractions from the most important thing when it comes to following Jesus. Now, this is profound, and if you're taking notes, you might want to write this down. The most important thing when it comes to following Jesus is, wait for it, Jesus. Look at that. If you don't know who you're following, are you really even following anyone? Now, what's interesting in this letter to the Colossian Christians is that Paul mentions Jesus about at least 30 times in these 4 short chapters, which means for him, as well for us, Jesus is kind of a big deal. In fact, he is the deal. Now, near the beginning of this document, Paul gives us an incredible insight into who Jesus is and why we should all sit up straight if Jesus were to walk into the room. He says in Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 through 23, the Apostle Paul said, the Son, meaning Jesus, is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior. But now he has reconciled you by Christ's physical body through death to present you holy in his sight, without blemish and free from accusation. If you continue in your faith, established and firm, and do not move from the hope held out in the gospel. This is the gospel that you heard and that has been proclaimed to every creature under heaven, and of which I, Paul, have become a servant. Now, that doesn't really sound like the little baby born in Bethlehem, does it? When you hear that explanation of who Jesus is, when you hear Paul's amazing statement there as to the person of Jesus, it doesn't really sound all that meek and mild, does it? It really doesn't sound like someone who would be giving up their life for the sake of others. Yet this is exactly who Jesus is. And if that's who Jesus is, if he is all these things that Paul talks about here in Colossians chapter 1, if that's who Jesus is, then I've got to know that guy. I think you need to know that guy. When Jesus came to us, when Jesus came to earth, Or as the Apostle John put it, when the Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us. Nobody saw the physical Jesus and thought, now that's the guy we're looking for. That's the Messiah. He's the one that we've been searching for. His physicality didn't match who He really was. And He is the point of everything. Jesus is the point of everything. If you call yourself a Jesus follower, that means you follow Jesus. That means you live in accordance with what Jesus said and how He lived, and everything about your life is a reflection of the person of Jesus. Now, the author of Hebrews, recognizing this centrality of Jesus, said that we as believers, we as followers of Jesus, must fix our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. We shouldn't fix our eyes on anything more or anything less. Don't add to Him. Don't take anything away from Him. Don't look past Him. Don't stop short of Him. Here is Paul's point. Don't let anything distract you from Jesus. Don't allow the things that bring comfort to pull you away from the challenge of truly following Jesus. See, so many times we don't have to try to be comfortable. We don't have to try to find things of comfort. We are creatures of comfort. We'll just naturally be attracted to those things. But Jesus never called anyone to comfort. Jesus never said, come and be comfortable. Don't allow the things that bring comfort to pull you away from the challenge of truly following Jesus, because He is the whole point of everything. And if the way we follow Jesus doesn't inspire others to do the same, we have some work to do. See, we all have the propensity to drift. It doesn't take work to drift. Actually, it requires constant work. It requires constant attention to stay on course. But if Jesus is who the Apostle Paul believed He was, He can help us. If we keep our eyes on Him and we cast aside everything that distracts us from Him and His purpose, we cannot fail. We will not lose focus. And we will keep our attention on the most important thing. Hey, thank you so much for being here with us this week, and we hope to see you soon.